We live in an age where existence feels incomplete unless it's witnessed. Every meal is staged, every laugh rehearsed. Every fleeting joy is framed and filtered before it ever reaches the heart. A world where silence has become suspicious and privacy is almost extinct. Open your phone and you'll see it, the grand theater of self-display. Millions of digital portraits performed daily under the fluorescent light of validation. Each smile designed to be consumed, each story posted to prove we are still alive. We share everything because deep down, we've been taught a dangerous idea. If it isn't seen, it doesn't count. But somewhere beyond the noise, there's another kind of person. They don't post, they don't document, they don't explain. Their lives unfold quietly, invisibly, untouched by the hunger for attention. And in that stillness, something about them feels different, stronger, freer, untamed. You might think they're shy, detached, maybe even strange. But what if they aren't hiding? What if they're protecting something sacred? Because when everyone else is fighting to be seen, they've chosen to remain whole. When others barter fragments of their soul for fleeting validation, they keep theirs intact. Their silence is not absence, it's mastery. Their invisibility is not a lack, it's power. So tonight, I invite you to look at them differently. And maybe, through them, to look at yourself. Because this isn't just about social media, it's about what it means to exist in a world that never stops watching. Before we dive deeper, stay until the end of this video. What you're about to hear might challenge the way you see yourself and the way you show yourself. By the time we finish, you'll understand why silence can be louder than noise, and how privacy might be the highest form of freedom left to us. If reflection and awakening speak to you, take a second to subscribe, hit the bell, and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to receive the next piece of this journey. Because what's coming next will open a door that few dare to walk through. In a world that monetizes your attention, exposure has quietly become the new currency. Every story, every selfie, every post, all of it has value, but not for you. The more you reveal, the more the world profits from your need to be seen. You're not just sharing moments anymore. You're participating in a silent economy where visibility is traded like gold, and the most expensive thing you can give away is yourself. We've been conditioned to believe that if it isn't shared, it doesn't exist. That the proof of life is not in living, but in showing. You could be standing under a breathtaking sky, yet your first instinct is to reach for your phone. Because somewhere, a quiet fear whispers, if I don't capture this, if I don't post this, it will disappear. And maybe so will I. It's a modern illusion, one that tells you your existence only gains meaning through validation. That your smile needs an audience to be real. That your joy needs a reaction to be complete. But what if the opposite is true? What if every image you upload is not an act of connection, but an act of surrender? What if every moment you share publicly becomes less yours, less sacred, because now it belongs to the crowd? Every photo is a piece of your identity, handed over for analysis, judgment, and approval. You give the world a map of your emotions, your tastes, your routines, and in exchange, you get a digital echo, a heart icon, a number that rises and falls, shaping how you see yourself. And without realizing it, the self becomes fragmented. You begin to exist through reflection rather than experience. You wake up not to live, but to be seen living. You eat not to taste, but to prove you were there. You smile not because you feel joy, but because the lens is waiting. This is not a connection. It's conditioning. What looks like freedom is actually dependency, a constant search for microdoses of approval to fill a void that cannot be filled. The more you post, the more you chase. And the more you chase, the more the algorithm feeds on you. Meanwhile, there exists another kind of person, rare, quiet, unbothered. The ones who don't post. The ones who choose silence over spectacle. They're not antisocial. They're awake. They understand the value of scarcity, the psychology of holding something back. They know that in a world drowning in exposure, what's unseen becomes powerful. They've discovered that privacy is not a lack, it's a luxury. That mystery is not isolation, it's magnetism. While most people run toward the light, desperate to be noticed, they remain in the shadows, calm, self-contained, whole. They don't need to prove their existence to anyone. They live for experience, not evidence. Because they understand something simple but revolutionary. The less you give away, the more of yourself you keep. And that's where their quiet confidence comes from. It's not arrogance, it's not indifference, it's sovereignty. They belong entirely to themselves. Their emotions are not performed. Their moments are not filtered. Their peace is not for sale. They've learned that in a culture obsessed with exposure, discretion is rebellion. Not posting isn't withdrawal, it's power. It's the choice to exist on your own terms, without audience or applause. That's why these people unsettle others. Their silence becomes a mirror that reflects everyone else's noise. Their calm forces others to ask, why don't I feel that peace? Because deep down, we all know what we've lost, the ability to live without needing to prove it. Maybe that's why the quiet ones feel so magnetic. In a society addicted to constant display, they represent something we crave but can't articulate: wholeness. They are unbroadcast, untouched by the addiction of exposure. And that's the hidden truth. The more you show, the less you own. The more you perform, the less you live. And the ones who refuse to perform are not behind, they are ahead. So the next time you reach for your phone to share a moment, pause. Feel it first, breathe it in. Ask yourself quietly, am I capturing this or am I losing it? Because the people who choose not to post already know the answer. What's sacred loses its soul when you hand it to the crowd. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt that silent exhaustion after scrolling for hours? The feeling that you've been watching life, not living it? Have you ever hesitated before posting, sensing that some moments are too real, too intimate to be shared? Write your story in the comments. Tell me about the time you felt the need to retreat, to protect what's yours. I read every single one, and I'll respond to as many as I can. Because here, your truth matters. And maybe, in sharing it consciously, you'll inspire someone else to keep a little more of themselves sacred. Our brains are wired for validation. It's ancient, older than language, older than culture. In tribes, approval meant safety. Rejection meant exile. We survived by belonging. But today, that instinct has been hijacked. The same circuitry that once helped us stay alive is now used to keep us addicted. Not to the community, but to feedback. Every notification, every like, every comment is a digital breadcrumb leading you deeper into a psychological loop. You post, you wait, you refresh. Your heart beats a little faster when the numbers rise. That small red icon flashes, and your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that fires when you win, when you eat, when you fall in love. It feels good. And because it feels good, you do it again and again, until your mind no longer distinguishes between joy and validation. The modern self has become a Pavlovian experiment, trained to seek applause, conditioned to chase approval, programmed to confuse being seen with being significant. But here's the paradox. The more you chase validation, the less you feel it. Because what you're feeding is not your soul, but your ego, a fragile construct built entirely on the gaze of others. And when that gaze disappears, so does your sense of self. You start to measure your worth in metrics, followers, likes, views, engagement. You refresh the numbers as if they could tell you who you are. But they never can, because you're not a number and your essence can't be quantified. Yet still, the loop pulls you back. Because the moment you stop posting, you feel invisible, forgotten, irrelevant. That ache, that need to be seen, isn't weakness, it's conditioning. The system has taught you to crave exposure and to fear silence. Alan Watts once said, when you try to define yourself, you confine yourself. And that's exactly what's happening here. Each post, each label, each selfie becomes another definition, another boundary drawn around who you think you are. You shrink yourself into something that fits inside a screen, into an image that others can digest. But in doing so, you lose the vastness of your being. The truth is, every time you define yourself publicly, you kill 1,000 other possibilities of who you could become. Because the moment the world tells you, this is you, you begin to live up to that image, not to your potential. That's why the people who don't post aren't hiding. They're resisting confinement. They're not addicted to reflection. They're addicted to reality. They don't need to prove their happiness because they're busy feeling it. They don't need to show their beauty because they're living it. They don't need to define themselves because they're still becoming. That's the quiet revolution you never see. In a culture where everyone documents their life, the unrecorded moment becomes sacred. These people have escaped the dopamine trap. They've stopped feeding the machine that converts emotion into engagement. They've reclaimed the space inside their minds, the space that used to belong to silence, wonder, boredom, and presence. Because here's the truth no one wants to hear. Every time you seek approval online, you give away authority over your peace. You hand your emotional stability to strangers, one at a time. And the cost of that transaction? Yourself. The people who live offline are not detached from the world. They're reconnected to it. They've learned to enjoy the sound of their own thoughts again, to breathe without waiting for acknowledgement. They've remembered what life feels like when you live it for yourself, not for display. Their happiness doesn't depend on the validation of others because it's rooted in something deeper. Experience. The taste of food without an audience, the sunset without a lens, the conversation that isn't recorded, the love that doesn't need proof. They live for experience, not for evidence. And that's what sets them free. The real detox isn't from social media. It's from the illusion that you need to be watched to be alive. The moment you stop seeking validation, you begin to see again yourself, your world, your breath, your presence. That's the moment of awakening, when you realize that nothing external can make you more real than you already are. So the next time you feel the urge to post, pause. Ask yourself, is this for me or for them? And if the answer feels heavy, maybe it's time to take your power back, because life doesn't need to be captured to be meaningful. It just needs to be lived. Now I want to hear your truth. Have you ever felt trapped in that dopamine loop, checking for likes, waiting for responses, feeling the rise and fall of your worth through numbers? Share your experience or your thoughts below. I'll read every comment and respond personally. This is more than a conversation about social media. It's a conversation about freedom, and maybe, just maybe, your story will help someone else remember who they are without the applause. Silence in the digital era is not emptiness, it's rebellion. In a culture where noise is the proof of existence, choosing quiet is an act of defiance. Every time you refuse to broadcast yourself, you reclaim something sacred, your autonomy, your mystery, your humanity. We live in a world that worships exposure. Every algorithm, every platform, every influencer whispers the same mantra. Show more. Show your face. Show your life. Show your pain, your joy, your body, your beliefs. The more you show, the more the world rewards you with hearts, followers, fleeting fame. But this constant exposure has a hidden cost. It turns the soul into a spectacle. It turns intimacy into content. It turns identity into a brand. Alan Watts once said, "The ego is a social fiction, and nowhere is that fiction more alive than online." The curated self, polished, filtered, exaggerated, becomes a mask that grows heavier with every post. And yet, most people can't put it down. Because when the mask disappears, they're terrified of who might be underneath. But those who choose not to play, those who remain silent, have discovered a radical truth. You can't lose yourself in a game you refuse to join. Their absence is not a lack. It's presence of a different kind, the kind that doesn't beg to be seen, They understand that what is unseen retains its essence. That power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits in the shadows. In a world where visibility equals control, invisibility has become the last refuge of freedom. The quiet ones have realized that by staying out of the spotlight, they step outside the system entirely. They can't be measured, manipulated, or monetized because they've made themselves unreachable. That's why silence unnerves people. It's unpredictable. It's untamable. It breaks the rhythm of a world addicted to response. When you stop reacting, others lose control over you. When you stop performing, their applause no longer matters. This is not withdrawal, it's sovereignty. Silence isn't submission, it's strategy. It's not about disappearing. It's about reappearing on your own terms. Think about it. When a person never posts, every rare glimpse becomes magnetic. Every word carries weight. Their absence becomes anticipation. Their mystery becomes gravity. Because scarcity, even in identity, breeds power. Consider the artists who barely speak, the thinkers who never explain, the individuals who seem to exist outside of reach. They command a different kind of attention. One not built on repetition, but on reverence. That's why mystery is so powerful. Because in a world that overshares, restraint becomes revolutionary. And it's not just philosophy, it's psychology. Studies show that people who maintain strong boundaries around their private lives report higher levels of confidence and lower levels of anxiety. When you don't hand your life to the crowd, you stop living for approval. You reclaim the right to define yourself, quietly, privately, honestly. Invisibility, then, is not a weakness to be fixed. It's a discipline to be cultivated. It's the art of choosing what deserves to be seen and what deserves to remain untouched by the gaze of others. Look at the monks who live in silence, the mystics who disappear into solitude, the poets who never explain their verses. They all understand something the modern mind has forgotten. That power expands in silence. When you no longer need to prove, you become impossible to control. When you no longer chase validation, you radiate authenticity. When you no longer perform, you begin to live. That's why the quiet ones unsettle the world. Because their peace exposes everyone else's chaos. Their composure reveals the collective desperation for attention. Their restraint mirrors the world's addiction to exposure. And here's the truth most people don't want to face. The digital age doesn't want you to be silent. It wants your energy, your reactions, your participation, because that's what keeps it alive. When you choose silence, you break the system's rhythm. You become an anomaly. You stop feeding the machine that profits from your insecurity. So when someone says, "You've disappeared," smile. Because they've just admitted they can no longer consume you. You're no longer part of the marketplace of attention. You're free. And freedom, in this century, is the rarest form of rebellion. Because when everyone is shouting to be seen, the most revolutionary act is to say nothing at all. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt the pull to step back, to disappear for a while, to stop showing, to just be? What happened when you did? Did you feel peace or fear or both? Share your story below. I read every comment and respond personally, because your experience adds depth to this conversation. Together, let's redefine what it means to exist, not by how loudly we shout, but by how consciously we remain silent. Mystery, in an oversharing world, has become magnetic. It pulls us toward the unknown, toward the quiet. In an age where everyone is shouting to be seen, the most powerful energy belongs to those who stay silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've learned that not everything needs to be heard. Those who don't post are not absent. They're rare. And rarity, in any market, whether it's gold, truth, or the human soul, creates value. We've been told visibility equals relevance, that if we're not seen, we disappear. But that's the great illusion of our time. The truth is, what we keep hidden often becomes what defines us most. What we protect, rather than expose, becomes the foundation of our power. When you stop showing, people start wondering. When you stop explaining, others start listening. When you stop chasing attention, you begin to own your presence. Presence is not about being seen. It's about being felt. It's that quiet strength that fills a room without words. It's the calm that unsettles those still enslaved by the need to prove themselves. The quiet ones know this. They understand that mystery isn't avoidance, it's mastery. They've realized that privacy is not a prison. It's a form of liberation. They don't hide out of fear. They withdraw to protect what's sacred. Because when everything is exposed, nothing feels real anymore. And that's why they choose silence, to preserve the depth that visibility dilutes. They've learned that life loses its flavor when constantly displayed. That beauty fades when forced to perform. That love, peace, and meaning can only survive when held close, not showcased for strangers. Every era has its rebellion. Ours isn't about politics, it's about psychology. It's about resisting the digital pressure to exist publicly. It's about saying, I don't need your gaze to know who I am. Freedom isn't about being seen. It's about not needing to be. That's the paradox the silent ones live by. They're not hiding from the world. They're protecting their world from dilution. They've learned to trade applause for authenticity, attention for peace. And in doing so, they found something almost extinct, wholeness. In their silence lies magnetism. People feel their presence, even when they're not there. Their absence becomes gravity. Their mystery draws others in, not because it's a game, but because it's real. Think of the moon. Half the time, it hides in darkness, yet even unseen, its pull commands the ocean. That's the nature of true presence, invisible yet undeniable. When you stop defining yourself through what others can see, you begin to radiate from within. Your energy shifts. You no longer beg for attention, you attract it effortlessly. You no longer prove your worth, you embody it. The mystery you protect becomes your signature. Because in a society obsessed with exposure, the most authentic thing you can do is withhold. To keep something for yourself. To let silence carry what words cannot. And that's the hidden strength of those who don't post. They live in a deeper rhythm, one that isn't measured in likes but in peace. They've discovered that mystery is not a wall. It's a window. Through it, they see the world more clearly because they are no longer blinded by the constant flash of attention. So maybe it's time to ask yourself, what part of you have you given away in exchange for visibility? And what might you regain if you simply stopped sharing it? Because what's unseen remains untouched. And what's untouched remains powerful. The quiet ones remind us that peace doesn't need an audience. That presence doesn't need a platform. That mystery, true mystery, is not hiding but choosing. Choosing what deserves to be sacred. And that choice, in this age of exposure, might be the highest act of freedom left to us. Now it's your turn. Have you ever stepped away from the noise, deleted the apps, gone silent, or stopped posting, and felt something inside you return? Tell me what you found in that silence. What did you regain? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Share your lesson, your story, your truth. I'll read each one because your experience adds depth to this conversation. Maybe your reflection will help someone else find the courage to reclaim their own quiet power. Maybe the photos you never post are the ones that truly define you. The laughter no one records, the tears that never make it to a caption, the quiet mornings when you simply exist without proving it. Those are the moments that belong entirely to you. The true luxury of the future isn't visibility, it's privacy. And the people who understand this are not retreating from life, they're returning to it. They've realized that peace isn't found in the spotlight, but in the spaces untouched by the public eye. In a culture obsessed with self-exposure, there's something almost holy about the unseen, the hidden, the preserved. Because everything that remains unseen is free. And freedom, real freedom, is the ability to live without performing. Look around, the world is drowning in displays of identity. We are documenting life faster than we are living it. Every click, every share, every upload a desperate whisper. Do you see me? Am I still here? But the quiet ones already know the answer. They don't need witnesses to exist. They've found meaning that doesn't depend on an audience. They understand that when you stop performing, your life becomes real again. When you no longer seek to be seen, you begin to see. You notice the softness of sunlight through the window, the pulse of your breath, the warmth of genuine laughter that belongs to no one but you. You start to remember what life felt like before it had to be captured, and in that remembrance, you awaken. Because the truth is, you were never designed to be an image. You were meant to be an experience. And every time you trade experience for exposure, you lose a little of your soul to the illusion of significance. So maybe the bravest thing you can do now is stop showing. Stop explaining, stop performing, and start living. Start building a life that doesn't need proof. A life that feels complete even in silence. Because sometimes the most powerful thing isn't what you reveal, but what you choose to keep sacred. Let the world chase attention. Let it scream for validation. You stay still. Stay grounded, stay private. Because privacy is no longer just protection, it's power. It's the invisible fortress around your peace, the quiet rebellion against a system that feeds on your need to be seen. Every unposted moment becomes an act of ownership. Every silence becomes a declaration of self. You don't need to disappear. You just need to stop performing. The people who truly matter will still see you. The ones who need to will feel you. And the rest of the world can scroll on, never realizing that the most extraordinary thing about you was never online. So ask yourself one last time, if tomorrow no one could see what you do, would your life still hold meaning? If your answer is yes, then you've already begun to awaken. Because that is the highest state of freedom, to live without witnesses, yet to feel fully alive. If this message stirred something in you, stay. This channel isn't made for noise. It's made for awakening, for reflection, for remembering what it means to be whole in a world that profits from your distraction. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join this growing circle of thinkers, seekers, and quiet revolutionaries who refuse to trade authenticity for attention. And before you leave, share in the comments the moment, sentence, or realization that resonated most with you. What part of today's reflection made you pause? What truth will you carry with you after this? Because your words, not your posts, are what connect us here. And maybe, just maybe, that's how we begin to build a quieter, wiser world. Until next time, remember this. You don't need to be seen to be real. You only need to be.